Whitaker Weekly is a 3-episode anime discussion podcast where two brothers discuss a show of their choice. The show can be anything from a current season flop to a decades-old classic. What are they going to talk about next? Who knows? They sure don't. This is Whitaker Weekly. Let's get right into it. We didn't have much news to cover this week. We do have Anime Bonsai happening this weekend. I won't be able to make it, but you'll be there.
Yes, I won one of their contests on Facebook, so I'm happy to go.
Yeah. So you're going to be going to Anime Bonsai this Saturday.
Yes.
I'm running my D&D game this Saturday, so that's what I'm doing. But
all right.
I'm also going to a haunted restaurant for lunch with some friends.
Cool.
There's a place here in Utah, down south, called Leslie's Family Tree.
Uh-huh.
And it's pretty famous because it was on one of those Ghost Hunter episodes,
Huh.
Or one of those Ghost Show episodes. I don't know which one.
Right.
And the food's delicious, so I'm go in there for lunch with some friends. But anyway, that's enough for personal stuff. News this week. This kind of came up in my news feed, and I wanted to share it with everybody. There is a new Eins Ul Gon figure that has been announced. He looks really, really cool. He's going to be a little over $200 American.
Yikes.
But part of it is that the orb that he has in his stomach, it actually is an LED light.
Nice.
And if you click on the link, I got this from Crunchyroll. If you click on the link, one of the pictures is him standing in front of a albedo statue. She's sold separately, but it's a pretty. It looks really cool next to it.
Sure, and so we'll have a link to this on our website.
Mm-hmm.
So go ahead and visit us at whitakerweekly.com, and you can see this link yourself.
Yeah. And with that, we're going to go ahead and get right into 3 episodes in.
Yeah. We didn't have a whole lot of news today. I mean, just to recap from something we mentioned last week is that this Monday, 7 Deadly Sins Season 3 dropped. And it does have 24 full episodes.
That's right. Awesome. I will have to watch that when I have the chance, but I haven't had the chance.
I was trying to watch it earlier this week, but I'm committed in finishing a craft for a trade I'm doing with someone teaching my kids piano lessons.
Oh, cool.
And I can't watch subtitled anime and craft at the same time. I'm not.
Do they not have the English? Do they not have the English dub?
They might. I just.
Anyway, okay.
I'm just me.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and move on from that and get into 3 episodes in.
Absolutely.
This week we watched the first 3 episodes of That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime. Look at us being topical. This is actually a seasonal anime.
It is a seasonal anime.
This week, episode 3 came out. So
this is brand new. There's nothing to spoil because there's only the 3 episodes.
There's only 3 episodes. I mean, if you read the manga or light novels, yes, you can spoil it. Apparently, this has been around for forever, so there's a lot of content. But yeah, anyway,
it's surprisingly adorable.
It's really, really fun so far. But anyway, this is the synopsis from Crunchyroll. Corporate worker Mikami Satoru is stabbed by a random killer and is reborn to an alternate world. But he turns out to be reborn a slime. Thrown into this new world with the name Rimuru, he begins a quest to create a world that's welcoming to all. Aww. And okay, an episode starts off with
no 2 people are not on fire.
No 2 people are not on fire. Aww. Being fangoriously devoured by a gelatinous monster.
Which some things actually do get fangoriously devoured by a gelatinous monster in this anime.
They sure do. Anyway, let's go ahead and get right into it. So it starts with the fire bombings of Tokyo, of all things. Those of you who aren't aware of World War II, not only did America drop the 2 atomic bombs on Japan, they also dumped enough dynamite on Tokyo to dwarf the damage that was done in the other 2 cities.
And it wasn't just dynamite. Sometimes it was just blocks of wood that were on fire, but their cities, their houses were made of wood and rice paper. Mm-hmm. And so what they littered their cities with these fire bombs, it was devastating. Mm-hmm. To find out more about it, you can watch other anime like Grave of the Fireflies. Started off with a
If you
situation of
want
that.
to have a bad time, watch Grave of the Fireflies.
It's one of those movies that gives you a historical perspective, but it's not
Oh,
one
it's
of those movies that was ever supposed to be commercially successful because nobody's going to watch it twice.
Well, yeah. It's a beautiful film. It's extremely well made. It's just very sad.
It is.
It's a very sad movie. It's one of those movies that's meant to make you think.
Yeah, it is.
Anyway, it starts off during the fire bombings of Tokyo.
And we see
there's a mother and a little girl.
Mother and a little girl. I want to say somewhere between 10 and 12.
Yeah, around
8
there.
And 12.
Yeah,
like that.
Running through the streets, and then suddenly this part of the building collapses, and the girl gets separated from her mother. You assume the mother died because she's screaming for her mother, and you don't see anything. And then suddenly the fire starts swirling around the girl, and it cuts, and you see this hand, and this hand raises, and there's sparkles coming from underneath the hand as if it's casting a spell. And then this fire becomes kind of a tornado around the girl, and she gets lifted up into it and disappears.
Yeah.
It looks like she's consumed by the fire, but at the same time, it's heavily hinted that she definitely was not consumed by the fire. That's something else is at play here.
Yeah.
And then we cut to modern day Tokyo, where Japan has very much embraced
Western civilization.
They're very,
and our main character standing there saying, "Oh, it's wonderful, so peaceful."
Yeah, I was about to say, like, Japan is very much, they haven't had any major military campaigns since World War II.
No, yeah.
They've become a very, very peace-loving nation. I mean, they did join in part of one of the Iraqi operations, and it made headlines across the world because it was the first time Japan had a military operation outside of Japan in forever. But or since World War II. But anyway, so he's walking down the street, and he's going to go meet his kohai, his junior at work, and it's revealed he's a 37-year-old man.
Yeah.
Never had a girlfriend. This is not the main character. 37-year-old man, never had a girlfriend, and his junior is introducing him to this girl who's obviously the junior's girlfriend.
Yes.
And their names are, it's Mikami Satoru is the main guy. Then we have Tamura. We only learn his last name, I believe, at least in the first few episodes. And he is the junior, the kohai. And then there's Sawataori Miho, who is the girlfriend.
Right.
And they're off to go eat
have lunch or dinner together, something.
They're gonna go eat lunch, and then somebody screams, and there's this guy in a hoodie with a big old knife running through the streets, just looking to kill someone. And
it's not really explained. It's just some crazed
guy, and he's going straight for the kohai who's trying to protect his girlfriend from this attacker. But then Satoru, the main character, jumps in the way and he gets stabbed.
Right.
Yep. And what a way to roll a new character.
Because he gets stabbed, and he's on the ground bleeding to death, and every thought he has seems to go to a systems admin.
Yeah. His first thought is, oh, it's so warm. And then suddenly it says, confirmed. You now have resistance to heat. Well, but everything's also getting so cold at the same time. Confirmed. You will have resistance to cold. It's like
all this blood. Confirmed. You will be a species that doesn't require blood.
You will be a species that doesn't require blood. And he's just like,
and my favorite bit of that was, I'm dying at 37 years old. If I made it to 40 as a virgin, I'd be considered a sage. Confirmed. Character class sage.
You will in Japan. Just kind of a bit of backstory. It's said that if you are a virgin at the age of 30, you are then a wizard. And that's what he says first. I was a wizard at 30. I was so close to becoming a sage. Only a couple more years until I was 40. And it said confirmed. Character class is sage.
Yeah.
But then he says something else. I forget what it is. And then it says confirmed. You are now a great sage.
I wonder what would happen if I was a virgin at 50.
I wonder what would happen if I had kept on going to become a great sage. Confirmed. Your character class is now a great sage. Skill predator acquired.
Well, the reason for that is, if I get reborn, I'm not going to wait. I'm going to hunt down any girl I can.
Confirmed. Skill predator. And he keeps getting all these random skills, and he says to his junior as he's bleeding out, the junior's like, please senpai, please don't die.
and the voice, he's hearing the voice, but he thinks it's his junior that's saying it, so he keeps telling him to be quiet and let me die in peace, or something like that.
But he says to the junior what? Because he has him do something with his computer.
He tells the junior, and I quote, "Take the hard drive out of my computer at home, dunk it in a bath, and make sure it's completely wiped." That's his dying request.
His dying request is for his hard drive to be destroyed.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
If I die, delete my browser history.
Mm-hmm.
Just that sort of thing.
It reminds me, I forget what show it was from, but someone just says, like for an alibi for his client, he says, he says, "Let me go ahead. Please allow me to produce my client's web browser history for."
I'm guilty. Night. I'm guilty.
And the guy on stand just says, "I'd rather just confess to the crime."
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Anyway, so he then dies, and then we have this really, really cool transition to this other world where he's dead, but he wakes up and he's like, "What's going on? Like, where am I? I can't feel my hands. I can't feel my feet."
What are those? Are those rocks? If those are rocks, I'm definitely not in a hospital.
Yeah, I'm definitely not in a hospital. What's going on? And slowly he just kind of starts to realize that he is not human any longer.
Yeah.
And he...
in an even more slower self-recognition than the whale and bowl of petunias.
Oh, gosh.
It's just ever so slowly just trying to realize, okay...
That's a Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy reference, listeners. For those of you who don't know, that has nothing to do with the show or anime. Anyways, please continue.
But still, it's along those lines of just step by step realizing, okay, I don't have hands. I don't have feet. Oh, I've fallen into a pool. I'm going to drown. Wait, I haven't been breathing this whole time. Am I waterproof? Do I even need to breathe? I'm going to be fine down here, aren't I?
Ability gained, resistance to water.
Yes.
But that happens later. But
it
yeah,
does, but it's like this step by step realization of what he's now become.
And he's kind of moving around, and you see little bits of it from his POV and from like some weird camera angles, kind of hiding his new body. And he's like, "Oh, this is a plant. Can I eat this? Wait, I don't have a mouth. Wait, what's happening?" And he went over it, and suddenly it dissolves, but he feels it, and there's like a picture that's a play on Da Vinci's I forget what it's called, but it's Leonardo da Vinci's picture of the man,
the Vitruvian Man.
That's what I thought I said. Yeah. Vitruvian Man.
Yeah.
I may have stumbled and said the Vitruvian, but it's Vitruvian Man.
Yeah.
And he but it's Satoru's body. And it just like lights up as his entire body just absorbs the nutrients from this at the same time. And you think, this is incredible. And he just starts eating all these plants by dissolving them, and it cuts back and it realizes, wait, he's not a human anymore. He's a slime. He's this tiny little blue blob.
Yep, I'm a slime. I don't even need to eat. I'm just doing this because I'm bored, and I may as well be doing something.
Yeah, and he's just going around, and he's eating all these herbs, and then the voice talks to him again and says, "You've acquired the ability to do this now," or whatever. And he eats these plants, and every 5 of these flowers he eats, he creates a healing potion.
Yeah.
That's stored inside of his body.
Which apparently is a pocket dimension with infinite storage or something.
Yeah, he's like, I was going to say a bag of holding, but he's way more than a bag of holding, because bag of holdings have a 250-pound limit. So...
Yes. But so he just starts massively annihilating groves of these flowers, and converting them into potions inside of himself.
And he's having so much fun doing it, just exploring this new body of his and doing things with it. And what's kind of cute is when he realizes he's a slime, he's got this very deep, masculine 37-year-old man's voice, until he realizes he's a slime. And at the same time, and when he realizes that, it switches to a voice actor who's got a very, very much younger voice. And they anyway,
well, then he falls into the pool. He's getting really excited. He dissolves some crystals and finds out that they have magical powers. So it's like a mana boost.
Yeah, it gives him more power by eating those crystals.
And then he's really excited, then forgets where he's going and falls into the lake. And that's the point where he goes, "Oh, is this how I die? Am I going to drown? Wait, I haven't had to breathe this whole time, have I? I'm going to be fine down here, huh? How do I move underwater?" And so he then decides to absorb the water and then spit it back out, and it propels him like a rocket through the water. It's the greatest thing.
And then he gets water projectile as a new weapon.
Water pressure propulsion skill.
Water pressure propulsion skill. And he just launches across this lake.
Which he launches across too fast, launches himself out of it, slams himself against a cave wall, and then down. He said, "That didn't hurt." No, yeah, and then the system admin was, "You have the skill pain reduction, but you did take 10% damage.
Aww.
Now initiating self-healing."
Whoa, this is incredible! And one thing that that I really, really like about the slime's body, is that the classic cliche anime stuff where
you got
somebody's
the sweat drop,
surprised and they've got like the surprised look, they've got the sweat drop, they've got the anxious or depressed lines,
or if they just feel wounded, suddenly a band-aid appears on them
type thing. The slime has all of those, but they're all projections from his body.
Yes.
Like, he'll be surprised and suddenly an exclamation point will pop out of his head, but it'll be slime pieces.
Yes. Or he'll have the classic like five lines of gloom on his face. The lines of gloom will actually come out of him in the slime and appear.
Yep. And if he's surprised or looking at something, he gets bug eyes. He doesn't have eyes until he gets surprised, and then suddenly eyes pop out.
Yeah, he does have these lines that kind of indicate his eyes, and you can see emotion on them, but they're just lines. They're not even open eyes.
Anyway, as he's exploring, he learns new skills. He learns water blade that's strong enough to slice through stone. He learns all these other things, and then finally he crashes into, just because he's goofing around and not really paying attention, he falls again and he crashes into a magical wall.
Yes.
And what's behind that magical wall?
Behind that magical wall is a being of immense power that he can't sense. It can only hear. And the being speaks to him, and he thinks to himself, "Why are you talking to me? I can't talk back." And the being continues talking to him. "Why? Shut up, Baldy. I can't speak to you anyway." "Baldy? You can hear my thoughts?"
Yeah, and realizes this creature's been speaking to him telepathically.
So the creature then teaches him the skill magic detection, which gives him the first glimpse into sight. And then we get a full view, and at this point the creature has been kind of in shadow or behind a blur, as it were.
He's been able to see, but just very close to the area around him, which is why he's been running into walls and falling into lakes and things.
But the creature teaches him magic sense, and suddenly he can see everything around him. He's like, "Oh, this is amazing! Ah, you're a dragon!"
Yep, and it's a dragon behind a magical barrier, and it's a big black dragon with powerful fangs and claws and stuff like that. And it's yeah. And what's so great about this dragon?
This dragon is.
This is kind of the end of episode 1 when he meets the dragon.
Okay, so episode 1,
episode 2 or so.
Okay, so he interacts with this dragon for a time, and the dragon has apparently been sealed up in this cave for the last 300 years. And he goes, "I've been a lonely virgin for 37 years. I can't imagine 300 years by yourself. That must be absolutely awful."
And the dragon introduces himself as the storm dragon Veldora, one of the great worms, one of the great dragons.
One of the 4 great dragons in the world. Yeah, I didn't write down his name. But the dragon, in exchange for teaching him how to see, it made him promise that he'd stick around and have conversations with him and come back and see him once in a while.
He's like, "Oh, this is incredible. I want to go exploring." "What? You're going to leave already? You just got here."
Yeah, and he starts pouting. He just, hands between his knees and
one of the great dragons is desperate for a friend.
Is desperate for a friend, but is not honest about his feelings.
Nope, as we learn later on, because he's like, "It's okay, I'll be your friend." "But who? What? How on earth? Why on earth would I want to be friends with you? How dare you ask to be friends? Offer to be friends with me, Veldora, the great storm dragon?" "Well, I guess if we don't want to." "Baka, I never said I didn't want to."
What are you, a tsundere?
What are you, a tsundere? So yeah, Veldora is a tsundere dragon, someone who's not honest with his feelings.
So now it was at this point that I thought maybe the dragon was the girl from the very beginning. because we have no idea what happened to her. Nothing's, but to have that girl, but to have
the one who gets surrounded by the fire vortex.
The one who's surrounded by a fire vortex and taken up. Now, there is a timeline difference because it's only a 60, 70 year difference between the firebombing of Tokyo and modern day. Is that 70, 80 years ago?
Firebombing of Tokyo was the 40s, late 40s.
Yeah, early 40s actually. I want to say because it was 44 that the war ended with the atomic bombs, 44 or 45. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it would have been around that era, so mid 40s.
So that's 70, 80 years ago.
Yeah, it's about 70 years ago or so at this point.
So so she would be taken 70 years prior, but I don't know if there's a difference in how time passes, like in Narnia. Mm-hmm. If how much of a difference in time passes, because if it's 80 years there, maybe that's where she came from 300 years previous.
But the dragon also explains, and one of the reasons you thought that is because the dragon explains that people are summoned. Like he says, "I'm not from this world. I'm originally a human," and he says, "Oh, so you're from that other world?" And he's like, "Wait, you mean you know about that other world?" I was like, "Yeah, people come here from that world all the time. Usually they get summoned by a powerful sorcerer, and then they're kind of enslaved by that sorcerer." But then the dragon talks about how he ended up imprisoned there. Mm-hmm. And it sounded like the warrior who trapped him was a summon. Yeah, so I'm currently at I'm going to wait and see. I'm not going to say for sure, but I think it's either the dragon or the warrior that defeated it was the one summoned during the firebombing. I don't think that the dragon is the one who defeats I don't think the dragon is the girl who was summoned. I only thought it because of his mannerisms and how much like a teenage girl after 300 years he still behaves. But is that how a teenage girl from the 1940s would have behaved? Probably not. Probably not. Who knows? But the reason that I think that it's the girl who sealed the dragon, because he says that a great hero sealed me. It seems more likely, and the way he talked about summoning sounded like the hero was summoned to defeat him. Yeah, and I didn't catch that my first time watching it, just because by the time when I first watched the show, I watched it every week when it came out, and so I didn't remember everything that happened in episode 1 when I caught episode 2. Right. But today, when I rewatched the episodes to get ready for tonight for our recording, I remember saw the girl getting teleported away again, and then for me it clicked seeing the little girl, or seeing the woman warrior fighting the dragon and sealing the dragon away. Yeah, because her face actually, after seeing the opening credits, her face kind of matched. Yeah, when you see behind the mask, when you see her face, she looks like she could be Japanese, right? Compared to the otherworldly creatures that have multiple colors of hair, whereas she's just plain black hair, black eyes, or brown eyes. Yeah. But another thing that leads me to believe that she might be Japanese, that she might be the girl, is the poster for That Time I Got Reincarnated as the Slime. It shows in the opening credits we see Rimaru, who is about to be named here by the dragon. Yeah. The slime. He eventually gains the ability to turn into a human. Right. And we see him battling other warriors and stuff, and avoiding attacks from those warriors by transforming into the slime to dodge them, and then back into the human to attack back, which is just way cool. Yes. But again, we don't see that until the very end of the first episode, and then at the beginning of the second. Because that's what they do in anime. But on the poster, it shows his human form holding that hero girl and the slime in between the two of them, with the other characters around them, including the goblins that he meets in episode 3 and the wolf and stuff like that. Okay. So if you take a look at that, I'm pretty sure she is from Japan. Right. And anyway. Okay. So what happens then is the dragon and the slime offer to name each other. Mm-hmm. Like, I'll give you a name if you'll give me one. What happens is that he says, well, let's go ahead and do this. I could use my ability, my fangoriously devouring ability to gain to analyze. His predator ability lets him analyze skills and take those skills for himself. But he can also pocket things and decide what to digest and what to keep safe. Yeah, and so he says, what I can do is the dragon can't use his abilities inside the force field to examine the force field, but they decide to try to do a two-prong attack. If the dragon attacks her from the inside while he's analyzing it from the outside, they may be able to break the barrier and figure out what's going on.
Right.
So he says, well, before that, I should name you.
Okay.
And we learn later on the power of names in this world.
Right.
So
the dragon. So he offers to name the dragon. So he's like, okay, you're a great storm dragon. Should I say the English word storm? It's kind of weird. What's another word for storm? Tempest.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so your name is So your name is whatever the.
No, how do you like what do you like?
How
do you like the sound of? How do you like the sound tempest?
And the dragon roars and seems deeply offended, like how dare you? But glows this aura. It's like, and what was the dragon's original first name?
Veldora.
Veldora Tempest. That is a great name.
I like it.
But the way he's roaring, it sounds like he's really upset. But no, it's just a really passionate gratitude.
He loves the name Tempest. He's like, that's awesome. And so he names Rimuru Tempest.
Yes.
So
they now share a family name.
They share a family name, so they are now brothers.
Yes.
And so Rimuru then expands and just becomes massive and like swallows the entire cage that he's in, this magical barrier.
Yep.
And just,
and then
shrinks down. And he's like, oh, well, that was over real fast. I miss him already, but yeah, and so they're both working on analyze. Well, the voice asks him if he wants to analyze, like perfect barrier or whatever, the unlimited barrier or whatever it was called, and he says yes, and then he works up on getting out of the cave.
Yeah.
So, but what did you want to say?
Oh no, that was it. The action of getting out of the cave, though, is absolutely fantastic, and we both actually wrote something down about this.
Mm-hmm.
And what I wrote down was, quote, "The Adventures of the Pokemon Ditto."
Whereas I wrote down that it's just a real fun montage of Rimuru going through the cave, killing monsters, eating those monsters, getting their powers, and then using their powers to go further down the cave.
Yeah, that entire scene makes me think...
I'm not going to use poison gas anymore. That's disgusting.
I don't even have taste buds, but that was awful.
Uh-huh.
But no, that entire scene made me think that this, like, the entire first episode could exist as the pilot for a Metroidvania type game where you can only go so far until you defeat a monster, gain his powers. Because one of the last things he does is he defeats a giant spider. And now he has the ability to spider swing across chasms.
Well, he defeats the spider, and then he uses the spider net to capture a bat, and he eats this giant bat, and that giant bat then gives him the sonar, echolocation, and sonar, and so he's able to
better navigate the cave.
Able to better navigate the cave, and not only that, but he's actually able to now produce sounds. So he's singing to himself.
Yes, with the little mouth that he built.
I am a robot.
I am an alien.
That's right. I am an alien, just having fun speaking with his new voice and stuff like that. And then he gets to the entrance of the cave finally.
He finally gets to this giant metal door, bronze or something, just like 2 stories tall. And he's like, okay, how do I get through this? I guess I could use the slice it with my water attack.
We should probably say, though, that before all this happened, right after he swallowed the dragon, we get a montage of the outside world, and he says at that point the world changed, and I had no idea.
Yeah,
and
the next month he was looking for an exit.
It took him a month to get out of the cave. But it cuts to a nearby city. There are 4 nations around this mountain range where the dragon is, and the dragon acted as a barrier between these nations.
Yes,
and nobody would cross those mountains because of the dragon. So it was peaceful because of him.
But as far as everyone knows, the dragon just vanished.
Yeah,
Nobody knows what happened.
And they're sending people to examine it and see what's going on, because the magical powers of the dragon, the things that were keeping things safe in the forest, they're all just gone now.
And so a series of adventurers are sent to go and examine the cave and find out, see if they can find anything that happened.
Yep.
And
then after we see that scene of a guild master talking about sending adventurers to go check it out, we get the montage of him going through and taking a month to get out of the cave.
And that's the first episode. That's the second episode when that starts happening.
That's the second episode. The second episode is him absorbing the dragon as well.
Right.
The episode 1 ends around the time when he meets the dragon. So it's not much longer after that before episode 1 ends.
Okay.
So episode 2 is a lot of the conversation. I mean, they do just discuss and talk for a little while, for a couple of minutes, maybe 5-6 minutes.
Okay.
But episode 2,
Okay.
is him devouring the dragon, him getting out of the cave, and then he gets out of the cave. And, he goes to the door, and as he's thinking about what to do, the door opens and he hides. So, and then he sees humans for his first time. He sees a couple of adventurers, two men and a woman, and he's super excited. But he's just like, "Wait a minute, I'm a slime. What if they just attack me right out as soon as I say hi? I should probably hide."
So he does hide, and then the adventurers decide about what they're going to do about going in. It says, "Well, if we get into trouble, we can always use escape." Apparently, they're two guys and a girl, and the girl appears
He's a
to be the
spellcaster
wizard,
of some sort. Mm-hmm.
And one of the guys says, "All right, we're going to go ahead and use the sneak ability," and he casts invisibility on himself and the rest of the party, and all you see is their footsteps going in. And that's when the slime thinks, "You could peep with that skill. That guy's a real creep. I'm going to have to become his friend later."
Well, and then he leaves, and as soon as he leaves, the female adventurer turns around, and they're like, "Wait, what just happened?" They're like, "Oh, I thought I sensed a monster, but I guess I was wrong." And then they continue going on into the cave.
And that's where he runs into a band of skinny goblins.
Mm-hmm. He goes through, and he runs into a band.
"Oh, sunlight! It smells so great. Except I have no nostrils."
Mm-hmm. It's so incredible being out here. Because episode 2 ends before the attack happens.
Right.
Episode 3 is the attack, so you really don't get much with the goblins in episode 2.
Right.
But anyway, he goes to these goblins, and he come up.
So most of episode 2 was
in the cave,
going through the cave.
Mm-hmm.
So,
but he meets up with these goblins who have all these weapons, and they're aimed. They have their weapons aimed at him, and he's looking at them. They're covered in rust. Like the weapons are
skinny,
chipped, and the goblins themselves are skinny, malnourished, and he talks to them, and they immediately like they're terrified of him. They said, "There's somebody here. Like there's an incredibly powerful monster around here, and we were sent to see who it was." And
who? Where? I didn't see anyone.
I didn't see anyone. And they keep talking to him, and he's like, "Wait, they mean me? They mean I'm a powerful monster? What?" And so he has them take him to the village where he meets the Goblin Chief. And the Goblin Chief is talking to him,
and they're clearly very nervous because the Goblin Chief. There's something wrong, and it's plainly obvious in what's happening. So the Goblin Chief actually beseeches him and tells him that he is a great monster, and we beg his protection because
our god
has disappeared a month ago, and now we have been besieged by direwolves in the area. And
direwolves are a lot more powerful than goblins. It takes 10 goblins to even stand a chance against one direwolf. Yes. And he says, "Well, how many goblins do you have?"
After the last 60, including our females who can fight 60.
Yeah, after the last attack, including the females that can fight 60. So they have 60 goblins against 100 direwolves. They're just going to get slaughtered.
Yeah, it needed to be 1,000 to 100 for them to have a chance.
But he says, "You guys keep saying that I'm a great, powerful monster. Why do you think that? Well, surely you must be joking, sure. Like that aura of yours.
Slime.
I'm just another slime. Surely you must be joking. You're a great and powerful monster. Just that aura that bleeds off of you is incredibly powerful." And he's like, "Aura?
I don't have an aura. Wait, skill. Can I sense my own aura?" Yeah, and he changing your skills.
Yeah, and he says, "Well, can I use magic sense to change to look at myself instead of everything else?" And she says, "Give me just a moment," or whatever. Yes, sure. The system admin then swaps it, and he sees himself, and he just sees this massive magical aura, like just purple tendrils coming off of him and stuff like that. And he's like, "Ah, crap! I'm so embarrassed. It's like I've been walking down a busy road with my fly open.
This is what I look like?
This is what I look like? This is horrible."
Gotta suck in my aura.
And then he sucks in his aura.
Oh, you guys must be very impressive to be willing to talk to me while I had this aura out.
Well, and then he thinks to himself, "Oh, wait, but those adventurers didn't sense my aura at all.
Are they going to be okay?
Are they going to be okay?" Yeah, so he was worried about the adventurers because they couldn't sense his aura.
Yes.
But anyway, He agrees. Long story short, he agrees to help.
And he, in order to keep up appearances, he asks, "What will you give me in exchange for helping?" And they said, and they thought about it, and they said, "Our loyalty. We will give you. We will be entirely loyal to you and you alone if you will help us with this."
And they reveal that, like, the elder reveals that the greatest warrior amongst them was one of his 2 sons,
and who had died who
had been killed by the direwolves,
who had died in the quest to find out how powerful the direwolves were. They didn't know how many there were, but he was mortally wounded in the battle and was able to make it home to relay the information before dying. And that is what is implied because they found him and were talking to him before he died. So I don't know if he made it back or if they found him. But
they're bowing down, pleading to him for their help.
Yeah, they're kissing the ground.
We get a flashback of him in an office in his human life, and his junior, his kohai, is asking him, just says, "Will you please help me?" Or like "Onegai shimasu," which is just like I humbly request your assistance, or I humbly request it.
Yes.
Negao is like to desire, so onegai is like a want or a desire, and onegai shimasu is I humbly desire, I humbly want it. It's a way of saying please.
Yes, it's a very polite.
It's a very polite way of saying please. But he says, it's like, I guess I just have a weakness. I can't say no to people who are asking for my help. He just says to himself. And so episode 2 ends with him offering to help them. In episode 3, we see just how powerful he really is compared to these goblins. And you wrote this down. The very first thing he does is he goes to he goes to help the wounded.
He goes to their hospital, and there are rows of bed rolls all on the ground, and wounded goblins all throughout. And he thinks about it for a second, and then he eats one of the goblins.
And they're like, "What are you doing?"
And the magic potions that he was building up a stockpile of, in
which he has thousands of by this point, simply because of all the flowers, all the herbs.
Because he spent months collecting these and doing nothing but grinding and collecting these as he was leveling up.
Because he had nothing else to do.
And so then that happened, and he and then you get this patooey sound as the goblin leaves him and lands face down, butt up in the air.
You see the goblin inside of him, and you see the wounds closing, and he's just like, "Oh, wow, I guess having these healing potions is really useful, huh?" And then he spits the goblin out. And then he goes, and the
goblin's fine.
And then he goes, he grabs every single other goblin, one after another, and then
patooey,
just spits them all out, one after another.
And they all land in the exact same way, face on the ground, butt in the air, knees down, just, and then they get up and look at themselves like, "I'm okay." Like,
and
"Oh, you're amazing."
Yep. And so the next thing he has them shore up their defenses, and he has them build a fence. And then we cut to that night, and the wolves are getting ready to attack, and we have the leader of the wolves and his son. And the leader is just like, "Well, look at that pathetic fence. Like, they really think that shambly little thing's going to stop us."
They first declare that tonight is the night they're going to wipe out the goblin village and finally take a stronghold in the area, because it's their intention to conquer the world one section at a time. And so the dire wolves go to charge them, and then they see that the goblins have fortified their house, their place, and so they're hesitant for a moment. But that's when the leader of the dire wolves tells them that, do they really think that piddly little fence is going to stop us?
Yeah.
And so he sends a wave to go attacking them, and this is where it starts to get a little bit bloody, because the
wolves start running into something that they can't see.
They start dying all of a sudden, and some of them are dying because they're being shot out by arrows, and the village chieftain is so bad that he shoots the fence.
Well, he doesn't even shoot the fence. He shoots the arrow, and it lands, like, it just clatters on the ground a couple feet in front of him. He's just like, "Eh."
I thought it bounced off the fence and clattered.
Well, I'll have to rewatch it, but it just seemed to me that he is so weak and feeble that it flew a couple feet and clattered on the ground.
The fence in question is actually just like a handful of logs going straight up every 3 feet or so. I wouldn't even call them logs. They're branches. It looks like Yeah, it's the kind of fence.
It's the equivalent of 2x4s.
Maybe
even 2x2s.
It's the equivalent of the kind of fence you'd expect to see out in the countryside where farmers from the Wild West, before barbed wire, would put out these fences that are just stacked and tied.
Yeah, it was more to mark property and stuff like that.
But the occasional branch sharpened and pointing outward.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a battlement, but it's really, really
but
flimsy. But it turns out what they're running into was that back when our hero was questing and he got the spider, he got two different kinds of spider silk: sticky thread and steel thread. And so what he did was he strung steel thread that was incredibly strong but incredibly fine. So these dire wolves were running through it and cutting themselves in half, running through this wire that they couldn't see.
Yeah, they were wounding themselves and killing themselves against this wire they couldn't see. And the leader direwolf got upset thinking about these little tricks. That's right. When they got close to the village and they see the slime, and the slime threatens them and says, leave us in peace. We have no desire to kill you all," or something like that.
Yeah.
And
turn around and walk away. This is your last warning.
Yep. And the wolves are prideful, so they attack. But the leader of the direwolves gets pissed and he just runs down, solo attack. He breaks through all the steel wires now that he knows where they are, because you can see the blood of his kin on them.
Yeah.
And he leaps
rips them apart, breaks them off.
Yeah, and then he leaps at Rimuru, but he gets stuck in the air, and because he didn't see the sticky web that Rimuru had set up. And then Rimuru just uses his water blade ability and just slices off the wolf's head, and there's just kind of this cool anime moment where the blade passes through,
and then a couple seconds,
splash of blood, and then a couple seconds pass, and the head falls off.
Yeah,
just
head falls to the ground.
Boop.
And so he yells at the wolves to run away, and I either. Do you wish to continue to fight, or do you wish to submit? And then the wolves just stand there. It's like, oh, come on, guys, just run away. He thinks to himself, and then he decides that he's going to absorb the body of the king that the direwolf captain that he just killed.
Their leader.
And turns into a direwolf and gains the ability intimidate.
And he turns into a direwolf. He gains the ability, and he just says, "Leave us now!" And he just starts shouting at them.
And the wolves approach.
Well, and he shouts he shouts so loudly that the surrounding area just gets surrounded in this sonic boom.
Yes.
And it's just a continuous push of force from his mouth.
And so we see their fur starts waving from the continuous push, and all the goblins are having a hard time standing from the other side of the fence.
And the direwolves, though, they start coming. They just they're pushing against the force, and he tries harder. They keep pushing, and finally they get up to him. He lets go of his shouting. And they just bow to him and call him their leader. Yeah. They have just sworn fealty to the man who killed their leader.
Like,
so,
okay, we can do this too.
Huh. So, and then next day, there's goblins and direwolves standing around together and stuff because they're now allies. And Rimuru's just like, well, yesterday's enemies are today's allies, so you all are now going to work together. And
what's your name? Oh, I don't have a name. Monsters Like Us don't have.
He says, looks to the chief, and he's like, I don't actually know anybody's names here. Like, what's your name? Oh, monsters don't have names. Or no, that's right. He says it to one of the goblins, and the chief then explains, no, monsters don't really have names. It's very rare for us to have them. It's like, oh, well, I guess first things first, and I'm going to go ahead and name everybody here. And all the goblins are just like, what? Huh? What? No, really? Are you serious? You're going to name us? You're going to give us names? And he's like, yeah. And then the chief just breaks down in tears, and he's so happy. And everybody's just celebrating about the fact that they're going to get names, and they're so cool about it.
So they line up in the most anxious queue ever. It's like, it's Christmas to them.
The chief is up front with his staff, and he's just like shaking it back and forth. He's so happy about it. And he gives them names. He names the chief. He asks the chief what the name of his son was, the one who died. And he says, his name is Rieger. And he says, okay, well, then you're Riegerd. He's like, oh, you've named me after my son. I'm so happy. And then he names his other son, who was the leader of the goblins who found Rimuru in episode 2. He names him after his brother, and they're super happy that the brother's name lives on.
I am honored enough to live to inherit my brother's name.
And like the same light that flashed around Rimuru when he got named by Veldora lights up around these goblins.
Yeah, and he has no
And
idea
when
there's it's not explained as to what's happening yet, but we're gonna find out soon.
Oh yeah, and it just cuts, and like it's kind of this montage of him naming all these goblins. Like he names the cute little goblin girls like Goblet, or like and eventually he just starts naming them all Gob something, and he's just like, I'm not even thinking like really caring anymore, but I feel so bad because they're so happy about the names I give them.
There's a dorky looking one that he names Gob Bozo or something like that.
Yeah, Gobzo.
Gobzo.
He's got like this flat face and massive nose, and you're just like, you're Gobzo, and he's just like, I feel so bad giving them these names, but
they're so happy.
They're so happy about it. And then
it's the direwolf's turn.
Well, and then the chief says, "Are you certain you're okay naming everybody today? I mean, this is really, really incredible, but are you sure you're going to be okay?" And he's like, "I'm just giving people names. It's totally fine." And then the direwolves come up, and he's just like, "Wow, they look really, really excited." And they're all just sitting there wagging their tail.
They're all very obediently sitting.
Oh no
perfectly, except for the tails are all wagging.
He sees them, he's just like, oh wait, the one up front, that's the son of the one that I killed. He was next in line to take control. Is he I wonder if he's upset at me. I wonder if he's planning anything to try to take my place. And he's sitting there all super like just like a direwolf, and then it cuts to behind the wolves, and every single one of their tails are just wagging back and forth. They're so happy to be named. And he's just like, I guess not. And then
I don't think he's mad at me.
And then he looks at the wolf, and this wolf has a star on his head.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay, this wolf, he's got a star. You know what? How about I give him my family name? Because he's a leader, So yeah. And he starts playing again with Tempest and stuff like that. And he comes to the reading of a couple of kanjis for Ranga, which is like I don't know what
Tempest Fang.
Yeah, Tempest Fang. And then he's like, I am Ranga. That is a powerful, wonderful name. And he gets super happy.
He loves it so much.
And then the flash happens again, like it happened for everybody else. And then suddenly Rimuru just he gets a warning and it just says, your
mana exceeded limit.
Your whatever they call it, Magicells or something like that, is below the minimum allowed level.
I realize it's a combination of magic and molecule. So it's magicules.
Magicules. So it's like your magicules are below the allowed limit or the minimum limit.
Entering recovery rest mode.
You're now in your recovery mode. Minimum days to recovery 3. And he's just like, oh.
So he enters into a 3-day coma after naming the first.
After naming how many, like, there's more than 60 goblins.
So 60 plus, I want to say about 12 that he healed, so maybe 72 goblins. And then one direwolf.
Well, no. There's more than that too, because he said those are the ones that are fit to fight.
Yeah, the ones that were fit to fight.
So there were children that wouldn't have been allowed to fight. There was the elderly that wouldn't have been allowed to fight.
Sure.
So we don't know how many were in the village, but I'd say it's a lot more than 60.
It's less than 100 though, because he determined that there was a 1-to-1 ratio of goblin to direwolf after the battle. So some of the direwolves died in the charge.
Yeah.
And so it's less than 100, but more than 60.
Yeah. But anyway, he gets put on this pedestal, and 2 of the goblin girls are like brushing him and making him nice, and they kind of kiss him and like put their heads on him in respect and awe, and it shows the elder, and that was just like, it's because he named so many of us in one day. Oh, please, great Rimuru, please return to us soon. And then 3 days later, Rimuru just pops back up, and he's super, He's all energized. And like he went from a dull blue color to the bright blue, sky blue sheen that he is again. And he's just like, okay, great. Oh, I wonder what happened to everybody. It's been 3 days. And he sees this tall, voluptuous, green-skinned woman in front of him. And she goes, oh, Lord Rimuru, you're awake. And he's like, wait,
who are you?
Who are you? And she says, I'm going to go get the elder. And then she runs out the door, and he's just like, what? What happened in those 3 days? And then you hear this, Lord Rimuru! And the door just explodes open, and this massive, muscular, green-skinned guy with gray hair who can't stop posing comes in and just praises Rimuru for everything that he's done.
Now, the one character trait of the Elder was that his nose had gone gray.
Mm-hmm.
And his nose is still gray, and that's the only thing that carried over.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like, wait... Chieftain, what happened to you?
And he's like, it's because you named us. When you name a monster, they get more powerful. And he's just doing all these muscle man poses because he was this doddering old man, and now he's got like the body of a fit bodybuilder.
And then the system admin starts telling him, and when you name a goblin, they're capable of evolving. So all the male goblins are now hobgoblins.
And all the female goblins are moblins or whatever. Or
goblinas.
Goblinas or whatever.
Yeah.
And all the female goblins are now just these beautiful, voluptuous women, and all the male goblins are like powerful, tall warriors, except for one who's this little
The bozo's still bozo.
Yeah. Yeah.
Gobzo. Still go.
But anyway, he and he goes out there and he sees and then Ranga realizes that his master is awake, and he runs in. He's like, "Master, it's so wonderful to see you again. You're alive." He's like, "Wait, what? Wait a minute, Star, you're a wolf. You're Ranga," and Ranga now has a horn on his head, and he's about 3 times the size he was before.
Yeah, he actually reminds me of one of the Digimon.
Yeah,
one of the Digimon,
the one who becomes
Matt's Digimon had a Yamato's Digimon had a horn once he evolved.
It was
Gabumon's evolution.
It was the one who turned into the wolf. I can't remember. I keep thinking just Greymon, but I was like, no, that's not. That's the Tyrannosaurus. Who became Wargreymon, and I just can't remember the name of the other one. Anyway,
it was, so it's clearly something from Japanese mythology. So, a wolf, the unicorn wolf.
He comes in and he's super happy, and he's wagging his tail, so hard that he blows the building down as it creates a tornado, it sucks up Rimuru,
by wagging his tail and blew the little.
And Rimuru gets sucked into this vortex and just goes flying away. They're just like, Lord Rimuru, and they go chasing after him and stuff.
It's great. And that becomes, and I'm sure that's going to be. It happens twice in this episode, so I'm sure it's going to become a running gag.
Probably.
Where he wags his tail to the point where Rimuru can't hold his ground.
Mm-hmm. But anyway, he then sees everybody out there, and he sees the voice. That's when the voice tells him that they evolve and they change. He's like, okay, well, let's go ahead and lay down some ground rules then. Everyone, you're going to pair off 1-to-1 type thing, because there's as many direwolves as there are goblins. And he wanted them to break off into pairs and to work together, but he says, but there's also 3 rules that you absolutely must follow. The first is never attack a human. The second is do not fight amongst yourselves, and the third is do not lord your strength over a weaker creature.
Yeah.
And someone raises his hand and says, "Why should we never attack humans?" And he just says, "Because I like humans." And they're like, "Oh, okay."
Also, because they live in very large groups, and if you pick a fight with them, they're going to retaliate with more people than we can defend ourselves with.
Well, at first he's just like, "Wow, that was way too easy," and then he explains further than that.
Yes, he does.
And then he's like, and they understand immediately why not to fight amongst themselves. But then Gobzo is just like, "Well, what do you mean, like, about lording our strength over someone else?" And he's just like, "You've become a lot stronger,
but you used to be weaker.
You know what it's like to be weak, so it's not okay for you to use that strength to persecute somebody who's weaker than you. You should use your strength to help people around you." And they're like, "Oh, okay, we like that." And then he breaks them off into 3 groups, or he names whatever his name is. Let me pull it up again. Rigard, he names him the Goblin Lord, and he's just super happy, and he's got tears once again about being named Goblin Lord. You're gonna be the Lord of the Goblins in this area. And then Rimuru's just like, "I don't understand why he's so happy. I was just dumping my job on him because I didn't want to do it."
Yeah, but being named now, he's not just named; he's titled, and I think he glue again when he was titled.
I didn't catch that, but maybe. But anyway, he then breaks them up into groups and says, "Okay, well, we need people to he divides them up into 3 groups."
So he notices that the houses are starting to fall apart.
Well, he breaks them up into groups. He's like, "Okay, we have jobs for you guys. First of all, you're going to go ahead and you guys are going to be like the guards and patrol people." And then he has people gathering food and whatnot. And he's just like, "But but are the houses and your clothing. This all sucks."
Yeah, well, he notices a very specific, voluptuous goblet who Goblina, who has been memed mercilessly on Facebook since.
She's all over the place now.
um, with crossovers and ties to Goblin Slayer and
Oh gosh. Anyway.
and another thing. Oh no, and I think they made some crossovers to Konosuba with that as well.
Oh dear.
I might just be thinking. Well, we'll see.
With crossovers with her and Konosuba?
I might be mistaken.
I know the Goblin
but
Slayer and Konosuba where it's got heavy masochistic noises.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know that they're doing some goblins. Well, I need to verify. I'll share it with you if I can find it. But no, he discovers that this very voluptuous goblin is immodest, is distractingly immodest, and wonders why just make some more clothes. Like, well, we're really not good at making clothes.
She's wearing the same clothes she wore when she was a tiny goblin, and now she's like, a 5'6", 5'7" foot tall.
When she was 3.5 feet tall, it was an okay, but yeah.
And they don't know any better because they're not wise to the ways of the world. So she's just like, But before all that, we have to say that he's looking over everything with
the captain.
Well, no, I'm talking about the second time he gets blown away by the tail, by Ranga's tail.
Okay.
And I forget what they're talking about. But Ranga gets super happy. Oh, that's right. Ranga and him are separate, and he's like, "Well, I only was able to name you." He's like, "But it's fine. You don't have to because we're the same pack. Everybody upgraded with me. He's the most powerful because he's the leader of the pack now." But everybody became new wolves with him, and they became Tempest wolves now. They're no longer dire wolves. And he's like, "Oh, that's awesome." And he's like, "I'm so happy you're happy, master." And he starts waving his tail again, and it just goes faster and faster and faster. And it just blows off, and it just blows Rimu away. And Rimu starts rolling down the hill. And Ranga's like, "Master!" And he runs down the hill after him, and he shrinks down to a normal size. He's like, "Oh, you can change sizes. That's going to be useful in the future."
and this whole time he's rolling down the hill, I'm thinking, you can transform into something that can stop you. You've learned a lot of transformations. But he doesn't stop. And he goes off a cliff.
He's still new.
He's still new.
He's still new to this. Let's be serious.
But he goes off a cliff, and I think that's when he demolishes one of their houses by falling off a cliff. Because he goes off the cliff, and you see the dire wolf look, "Master!" And then next thing you see is a demolished house.
But anyways, he sees the house, and later on, after he's given him the jobs and he's talking about the clothes and their housing and stuff like that, he sees another house and the house just falls over.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Yeah, your buildings just suck." And they're just like, "Well, and they're like, "Well, we don't have the skills of carpenters, and we can't make clothing. We don't know how." And he's like, "Well, have you ever tried, is there anyone else around here who can do that?" And he's like, "Well, we tried to trade with some people in the past who have that ability, but, we were never really successful." He's like, "Oh, well, who were they?" "Oh, they were the dwarves over in the Dwagonia kingdom or whatever."
And at that point, Rimuru is just like, "Dwarves? The masters of metalcraft?" And things like that? This is so amazing! And I gotta go meet them!
And he has a mental image of the typical fantasy dwarves, and I'm kind of hoping that, and I'm kind of expecting his hopes to be crushed and them not to be typical dwarves.
But we won't know until Monday.
We won't know until Monday.
Because
I can't go home after this and just watch more of it.
This episode ends with him and a unit of 5. Him and 4 others, including Gobzo, 2 male warriors and a female, all on riding their dire wolves towards the town.
And Gobzo's holding on for dear life because they're going pretty fast.
Everybody else is able to hold on, but Gobzo never grew up. He's still a 3'0" goblin. Just,
But he's in the opening credits doing some martial arts moves, so I think he's going to learn some special skills.
Awesome.
But anyway, and he goes off to go meet the dwarves, and the next episode is him meeting dwarves, which we won't see until Monday. But Final thoughts on that time I got reincarnated as a slime.
Okay, so far it's absolutely adorable. It's young adult friendly. In terms of genre, there is blood, so it's not child friendly. I mean, but it's kind of toony in how the blood is. So if you're okay with fantasy violence, it's great.
And so far, every time there's been blood, it's been on an enemy. You haven't really seen heroes get hurt, except for the main character at the very beginning.
Yeah, I mean, there isn't any blood when he first decapitates his first snake.
Yeah, there is.
a little bit.
There, when the attack happens, there's some blood, but there's no blood bleeding out of the body.
Right.
So.
And then the most of it was when he the attack of the dire wolves was pretty bloody.
Mm-hmm.
But overall, but yeah, fantasy violence with blood.
You and I have very different definitions of very bloody, but anyway.
Well, I mean, I've got 3 kids, and they're 13, 10, and 7, give or take. And so I'm just thinking, you know, my 13-year-old, my 10-year-old can handle this because it's not worse than My Hero Academia.
Oh yeah,
in terms of blood and violence.
Definitely.
I mean, I still wouldn't even let my 13-year-old watch Attack on Titan yet. But
now I did look up a couple of things. Well, anyways,
but this one's fine. But it's not. Yeah. It's not for 7-year-olds. It's not for my 7-year-old. No.
I think Matthew could handle it. Though.
I think he can handle it in a heartbeat.
Yeah, definitely a 10-year-old. But anyway, yeah, I loved it. I thought it was great.
I think it's adorable. I've already recommended it to my oldest.
And I'm thinking, and from the way that I'm pretty sure that because he's trying to gather a town trying to create a place for all races to be happy, there's going to be people who are going to be fighting against that. So I think people are going to be seeing him as the villain of the story from their point of view.
Well, he is a slime. He is a monster. And so he'll be hard pressed to get everyone to take him seriously. So I'm looking forward to seeing what obstacles he overcomes by bringing in a small war party into the dwarves, consisting of dire wolves, goblins, and a slime monster.
Well, considering his one dire wolf is powerful enough to probably overthrow an entire unit just by wagging his tail.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, I'm looking forward to more of it. I'm looking forward to coming home after a long day of work on Monday and stuff, and just relaxing watching an episode of That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime. I'm definitely gonna keep watching it this season.
Right.
Okay, so I got to pick last week. This week is your week, and how dare you?
How dare I? Because you've read ahead and seen what I picked, haven't you?
Yeah, I read ahead. You had already picked it before we started writing notes on this week's episodes.
Yes, I did.
And I've already watched half of this, so you're making me go back and rewatch the first 3 episodes, you horrible person, you.
Okay, we have to talk about this. We absolutely have to spend an episode talking about this because it's amazing.
Okay, fine.
Okay, so the show that I've picked is Asobi Asobase, which is something we've both. I'm breaking our protocol because we've both watched this more than a little bit, but I have to see this again, and I have to talk to you about this. Because it's just amazing.
And I'm just being facetious. It's a delightful show. It's really, really fun. I told our mutual friend Mary, she's the one who told us about...
she introduced us to 50% off.
Well, she introduced us to 50% off, and she's the one who told me about the daily lives of high school boys.
Okay.
And I told her that this show is the daily lives of high school boys, only it's all girls.
And on crack.
And I think I prefer it. And she's like, no, that's not possible.
Have you got her to watch it yet?
I don't think I've gotten her to watch it yet, but I've told her about it, and it's awesome.
All right.
This show, you watch real fast, okay? You watch the opening credits of this show, and you think it's just going to be a typical, slice of life girl.
It is the
show.
Second most deceptive opening credits I've ever seen.
The most
deceptive has to go to Pop Team Epic.
Pop Team Epic, yes. And it's just these 3 girls singing about life and stuff like that, and they're skipping through fields and stuff like that. The closing credits are harsh chalk drawings of the 3 of them singing a heavy metal song, headbanging to it and everything, and it's far more like what the show's really like.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Anyway,
okay, so next week we're watching Asobi Asobase. And Crunchyroll has the following synopsis. Olivia is a blonde-haired beauty who was born and raised in Japan, but can't speak any English. Despite always acting serious and as an intellectual, Kasumi is a bespectacled girl with short hair who also can't speak English. Finally, there's the pig-tailed Hanako, who's cheerful but can't seem to become a normie.
She wants to be popular so badly.
The 3 middle schoolers end up making a players club. Ultimately cute, ultimately fun, and hilarious teenage girls comedy is about to begin. You know what? The subtitles don't say players club, but now that I've read that makes a little bit more sense with some of the misinterpretations of what their club's supposed to be about.
Yep. Anyway,
We'll talk.
we'll save it more for next week.
Absolutely, it's fantastic.
All right.
All right, that brings us to your recommendation of the week.
Okay, recommendation of the week is my turn this week. And I'm going to go ahead and recommend an anime that's also new this season, and we're probably not going to discuss it simply because it's one of those shorter 10-minute shows. And this is called Skullface Bookseller Honda-san. And it's a comedy. It's a comedy of what goes on behind the scenes at a bookstore. And it was actually written by somebody who worked at a bookstore.
But it's like a Skeletor type guy. He's just
he's a skeleton. He's a skeleton working at a bookstore. And everybody else is just got a weird face. Like someone has a knight's face, someone has a gas mask, someone has a bug catcher's face, someone has a kabuki actor's face. Now
the only clip I've seen is his reaction to just how many different people are buying gay porn from his store.
Like the first episode has to do all with people coming in and buying porn from his store, and he is. Everybody's a senpai to him. He's the newest employee. And so there's a massive rush at the counter, so they get him to go to the counter. He goes over and he starts helping customers, and his first customer is a foreigner who doesn't speak Japanese, so he starts freaking out. And he's like, I am looking for this book for my daughter. And he shows up a picture of it on his smartphone, and it's a boy love book. No, that's not what it was. It was a doshijin of a famous comic book character that happened to be wrapped in tentacles doing lewd things to him on the cover. And he was just like, ah! He was just freaking out. And he was just like, no. But he was trying to explain it to this man that his daughter, first of all, they don't carry doshijins. Doshijin is a fan-made comic. Not always lewd, but a lot of times yes. But and so he's explained to him in broken English that they don't carry that. And he had been to like 5 other bookstores that day and nobody carried it. And so the dad was just crushed. And then he tried explaining to him that you shouldn't buy that for your daughter anyways because that's porn. And your daughter's too young for that. And he's like, oh, okay, thank you. Then I won't buy it for her. And then the next person who comes up is another foreigner who's just this big fat tourist who's got like the I Love Anime shirt on and stuff. Blonde curly hair. And he wants all these limited edition collector's editions manga collections that are super heavy and super expensive. Yeah. And then later on in that same episode, as he's restocking, he comes across all these women of just different walks of life, different personalities, different dress styles and everything, all of them buying boy love mangas. And they ask him for recommendations, even though he's never read any. But he's terrified of them because some of them are foreigners again. So anyway, that's the first episode. And the second episode is also pretty silly. It's just a lighthearted romp. If you've got 10 minutes a week, just watch it. It's loads of fun. So that's my recommendation for the week.
Which reminds me, there's actually a guy who owns a shop not far from here, down in the Riverwoods, who has an antique bookstore shop, but he also has collectibles that are his own that are not for sale. But what he has is a book that is an original print of The Hobbit, signed by J.R.R. Tolkien.
Wow.
Worth $250,000.
Okay.
And he has the prototype ring that was originally picked by it was the first prop selected by
Peter
Jackson to be like they made a whole bunch of rings for him to choose from. The one he chose that they ended up making copies of for the movie. He has it.
That's so cool. That's
so
really cool.
And you're not allowed to get that close to it.
Nope. Anyway, that's it for recommendation of the week. It is now time for creator shout out.
And I have to really credit you for introducing me to this creator. This is Roan Lee. And she is a singer on YouTube who does covers of Japanese anime opening and closing credits. And she was the girl who did the cover for the season 3 opener for Overlord that you shared with me. And she has a whole channel, and every Friday at 6 p.m., according to her channel, she releases a new song. And she's done tons of them, tons of different anime opening and closing. She still that season 3 opener for Overlord was fantastic that she did. But yeah, she's got quite an extensive collection to go from. And so we have Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, and Google Plus links for her that we'll be sharing on our website.
Mm-hmm.
So come to whitakerweekly.com and see this video to see this episode to go and see what she's up to.
And if you like her, go ahead and support her.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, that's it for this week. Thanks so much for listening in. If you listened on YouTube, please feel free to like this episode and subscribe to our channel. If you like what we do and want to support us, please spread the word of our podcast or even support us on Patreon. Where can they find us on social media?
Our site, whitakerweekly.com, currently has links to our Facebook page, Twitter account, Patreon page, and YouTube channel. We encourage all our listeners to follow us on the social media platform of their preference. And if there's one we're not on yet, please reach out to us on one of the ones we've mentioned, and we'll broaden our scope to include you.
Okay. And artwork for our podcast is no? You're not going to worry about that?
Yeah, that's fine. Well, I just need... Okay, so I put it in the script so that I had something to copy and paste.
Okay.
But you can say it if you want.
Okay, well, I do want to say it. I want to go ahead and give them credit. I mean, Ben Coombs is our incredible artist. He's the one who did our avatars and the artwork for our site and for our podcast. And then our opening and closing music is Dry Clock by Brasmataz.
Okay.
So, yeah, all credits to the artists.
Fantastic.
All right. Well, I've been Andrew.
I've been Lee.
And this has been Whitaker Weekly. You guys have a great week.